All right, guys. So you guys are here, so we're going to get started. But welcome. Tell you a little bit about me real quick. Monique and I have been married 28 years. She's not here tonight. She works the after-school program. We have a 23-year-old, 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 12-year-old. Yeah, much prayer. Trying to set boundaries for those 5 kids, it is a challenge. It's one of the challenges you have, especially when you have multiple kids. So what I'm hoping to achieve tonight is not to answer all your questions, not to give you a formula, because formulas don't work. I've tried it with our first one. The beautiful thing about having multiple kids, you can mess up the first couple. So our 12-year-old's probably going to turn out pretty normal. So it's exciting. But no, in all seriousness, I'm hoping that all of us will at least take one thing away tonight that's going to help you. That's the goal. When we do these symposiums, they're not all inclusive. There's so many different things we can talk about. Everybody's scenario is different because our kids are all different. Their temperaments are all different. But the goal, my heartbeat in doing symposiums is if we can give parents one thing that they say, aha, I like that. I haven't tried that. I'm going to go take that into my home. Then it's been a success. Okay? Nothing profound, honestly. There's going to be no earth-shattering, like, wow, right? It's principles that a lot of us probably already know, but we're not doing. Probably one of the biggest things that I see in parenting, I saw it in my own parenting, still see it in my parenting at times. Working with kids for over 25 years now, kids from elementary all the way to high school, even college-age kids. There's one common thing that I see as being, I would say, one of the top 3 things that destroys parenting. Anybody want to take a guess? One of the top 3 things that totally undermines the whole parenting process. Just take a guess. Go. That will be in the top 3. Excellent. It's not the one I had in mind, but that's definitely in the top 3. What else? Trying to be their friend.
Empty threats.
Empty threats. So it kind of goes with that. So because it's an empty threat, there's no consequences. I can tell you horror stories. I can tell you horror stories of moms and dads sitting in my office with their teen, and the teen just totally disrespectful. Mom, Mom, you're so stupid. Oh, my goodness. And I'm waiting for the parents to say, excuse me, and they're like, well, honey, but that's just what I think. And I'm like, wait, can we go back? He just called you stupid. And of course, I can't do that because I got to be a professional. And I just sit there and I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. And then I'm waiting for the father to step up, right? Be the man. Johnny, come on. No need to talk to mom that way. Mom's had a bad day today, John. And I'm like, that's why I have to go to therapy after all of my sessions. I'm like, are you kidding me, right? We've all failed. We've all failed. There's stuff I've done because I'm tired. I'm just tired. And I know I shouldn't force it, but I don't. I'm just tired. I'm worn out. So I want to go, sit in my office, watch a cooking show, and be done with the day. And then we let stuff go. And then here comes the wife. Honey, did you say he could take the car and go over to Derek's? Yeah, honey, we talked about this. I don't like Derek. Honey, it's no big deal, right? And then that causes what between the spouses? You got it, right? So this is the real world. I'm hoping you can just take one thing, and these boundaries really doesn't matter the age of your kid. It doesn't matter the age of the kid. The principles are the same. Obviously, you have to adjust them to the maturity level of the child, but the principles are the same. Okay, so thank you again for coming out. Let's have a quick word of prayer, and we're going to jump in. For those who have never heard me present, I am very conversational. I don't want to sit here for an hour and a half and lecture to you, because then it will feel like I'm at home with my kids. Interaction, right? So if you have a question, or hey, Pastor Ron, what about this? What about this, right? I'm not worried about getting through all the slides. Again, if you want the presentation, we'll email that to you. Just email me and say, hey, can I have that presentation? No problem. The presentation is basically a summary of the book. And it's not even an exhaustive summary, okay? But I do want to encourage you, if you don't have it already, to grab the book, Boundaries with Kids by Dr. Henry Cloud. Did anybody come in late? Any other new families here? New to FCA for the first time? All right, because we got one book to give away. All right, so if that doesn't happen, we'll give it to an FCA old-timer, okay? But I want to encourage you to get it. It's very practical. It's very readable. And while we're talking about boundaries with kids, they also did one on marriage. Boundaries in marriage. Get that. It will change your marriage, okay? You'll see what your spouse is doing wrong. All right, so I want to encourage you to get that, okay? All right, so let's have a quick word of prayer, and we're going to jump in, all right? Father, thank you so much for tonight, and I pray for all these families that are represented, all these kids that are represented here by these parents, and we need your wisdom. We are trying to raise our kids in a very, very difficult time. And God, we need your wisdom. And I pray that tonight, in some small way, would be a help to set good boundaries that we might foster character, responsibility. Father, kids that will grow up to be young men and women. Father, that we can sit back and just rejoice in. So God, thank you again. I pray for your blessing upon our time. In Christ's name, amen. All right, so as we jump in, Hebrews 12:11 says, for the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. I love that verse. How many times have you bailed out of disciplining, setting boundaries to your kid because it's just not pleasant? I just don't want the argument. I'm too tired. I'm counseling all day here, students, staffs, families, and I got to go home and put fires out in my own house. You know what? I'm just going to let some stuff go. It's hard. So it doesn't seem pleasant, but if we are persevering, it's going to lead fruit of righteousness. In other words, it's going to yield right behavior. Okay? But it takes consistency, perseverance. All right? So, 3 roles of a parent. You are a guardian, right? You are a manager. Not only do you have to guard and protect and provide, but you have to manage your child. Think about it in terms of a business. Now, this is where it becomes very difficult, because if you have multiple children, as I shared in the opening, you're dealing with multiple temperaments, multiple personalities, multiple ages, expectations, and you have to manage all of that. And this becomes very challenging to set boundaries and keep them there, right? Then you're a source. What do I mean by that? You're a resource to your kids. You have stuff they want. Think about that. Every time I see one of my kids, Dad, you got $1? I'm saying, what? Literally every time. Dad, you got $1? I said, where are you going? You're just coming downstairs into the den. What do you need $1 for? Why do you? Because when we go back to school, I'm going to go to the vending machine. It's Saturday. You're not in school, right? But we are a source, a resource to them. One of the most powerful tools you have in setting boundaries is the fact that you have resources they want. They want your time. They want your money. They want your transportation. They want your food. You say, wait, how do you use that as a boundary? Oh, you can. No, no. Feed your kids, all right? Feed your kids, okay? But we have these three different roles, okay? We talk about the guardian protects and preserves the child. What's right? What's wrong? What's safe? What is wisdom? What's foolishness? So we're not just talking about physically protecting your kid, but you have the God-given responsibility to protect them intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Man, that's a tall bill. Look, we're trying to do that for ourselves, right? And some of us might be struggling personally trying to do this. But now we have to also do it to the kids God has entrusted to us. As a manager, ensuring things get done. Provide the discipline that's needed, controlling the resources, and again, one of the things that's often breached, enforce consequences. What is one of your hardest struggles when it comes to being the manager of your home? Say it. Time. That's probably one of the biggest culprits. We are so busy. We are so busy because everything that we're going to talk about as far as setting boundaries, if you don't have time to commit to doing this, you're not going to set the boundaries. Think about it. We're so busy. Back-to-back schedules. So you set a boundary. The kid breaches the boundary. You don't have time to deal with that because you got to get on to the next thing. So what do? You know, whatever, fine. Let's go. We got to go. Soccer practice. We got to go. Okay, so the kid just didn't do the chore for the 4th day in a row. Had plenty of time to do it. You come home at 5, you honk the horn, they all jump in. Y'all did the chores, right? Oh, yeah, Hannah didn't. Oh, Ron didn't do the dishes. And what do? Here's what we do. In that moment, we parent, don't we? How many times do I got to tell you guys, what is your problem? I'm working all day. I don't even have time to go and get something to eat. You've been home since 3 o'clock, and you couldn't take the trash out. Are you kidding me? Look, there's the truck. Now it's taking a can. And now we're going to have more. Oh, you kids get, oh, my goodness. All right, where's the game at? Where are we going? That's how we parent. That's not parenting. That's a parent having a parent tantrum. And guess what's going to happen? Day 5 is going to roll around, and guess what? They still didn't do the chore. Like, they get used to, we can breach the boundary and just deal with Dad's 30-second rant. We're good. And we keep getting frustrated because why won't you kids do this, right? Bad parenting. But one of the things that's exasperating that is time. I don't have time to lecture you about why you live in this home, you need to participate in it. I don't have time because I'm already late for the game. Source, bridge to the outside world of sources. And that becomes, I don't want to say a bargaining chip, but as your kid gets older, depending on the age, they want more and more freedom. So you have to begin to think in terms of, I'm the one that creates the bridge for you to enjoy life. So what am I going to do? I'm going to determine the release of these resources to you based on your responsibility and your follow-through. Right? It's a good way to think about the power that you have. All right? I love it. Again, my kids are, 23 down to 12. So the 3 that are working, out of the 3 that are working, only 2 of them drive. Only 1 of them have a car. Anybody in that phase of life? So I love it when I come home and my kids tell me what I'm going to do. And they don't even think anything of it. It's like I'm their chauffeur. Come home, sitting down at dinner. Oh, Dad, I need you to take me over to Mark's. I got to pick up that project. Oh, yeah, Dad, I got to be at Chick-fil-A at 4:30. They want me to do an extra shift, so I'm going to go get ready. Oh, Dad, can you? And I'm thinking, ain't nobody asked me anything. And what do I do in those moments? What do I do? Well, they're working. They got to get to work, so, all right, let's go. You say, well, Ron, what choice do you have? What choice do I have? What would you do in that moment? Are you just going to keep going at the dictate of your kid's schedule? No, see, I failed in that area. I'm glad they're working. But you don't commit to taking a shift and you don't have transportation. And you assume Dad's going to take you. You have to check in with me. Dad, Chick-fil-A wants me to come in. Can you take me? You see what I'm saying? So easy as our kids get older, we role reverse. And they start dictating to you what you need to do. You never relinquish parenting. So I had to sit down and tell my daughter one time. I came home. I had an appointment to go to, going in this direction. I come home and she said, "Oh, Dad, I'm so glad you're home. They want me to come in. Come on, let's go." I said, "Stop. I'm not taking you to work. I have an appointment." Blow up. I already told them I was going to come in. "Oh, you can't, Dad, you can't do this." I said, "Yeah, I can actually. Watch. I'm going to get a cup of coffee. I'm going to put my coat back on. I'm getting in the car, and I'm going to my appointment." Oh, man, I'm evil now. I'm an evil dad. What if I get fired? Now, understand, this is after I've told you for the umpteenth time, you cannot plan stuff and you don't drive. You have to check in with Mom or check in with Dad, right? At some point, you have to draw that line and make the boundaries stick. And it's hard because in this case that I'm giving you, is my daughter asking me to go down Philly and go to a house party? No, she actually picked up another shift. She's already worked like 25 hours. It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing if I allow that behavior to continue because I'm not teaching her boundaries. You see? So it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. It could be something positive that they're doing, but we're not teaching them boundaries. Character building. What does that look like? These are just some preliminary thoughts as we talk about the idea of building boundaries. What trait are you looking to develop in your child? And what does that look like to you? It's easy to say, I want my kid to be respectable. I don't know any parent that wouldn't say that. But what does that mean to you? It's interesting, the couple I told you about where the 17-year-old was totally disrespectful, when he stepped out to use the restroom, I said to this guy, I said, let me ask you guys a question. What's important for your team? What do you want that teen boy to understand? They said, "Oh, respect." Really? And they said, "Oh, absolutely. He might not be the brightest, he might not be athletic, but we want him to be a respectful young man." I looked at the father and I said, "With all due respect, sir," no pun intended, "no, you don't." He said, "Excuse me, Pastor?" I said, "No, you don't. You want respect, but you really don't want respect for your kid." He said, "Well, I don't understand. Why would you say that?" I said, "Because for 23 minutes I've listened to him disrespect you and your wife." And he just hung his head. And then they start blaming one another. "Well, she's too soft on him. Well, you're too hard on him." And then you get that dynamic where the spouses, and we'll talk about that a little later, when spouses are not on the same page, you destroy your child. You destroy your child, okay? Because this is the end result. And the child's not stupid. The kid knows when Mom and Dad are not on the same page. And do you know what they're going to do? They're not going to come to you and say, "Father, I know Mother is a little soft, and I know you're trying to be hard on me, and I appreciate that, and I'm going to really yield to that, Father." No, do you know what your kid does? They do what my kids do. They exploit it. They exploit it because that's what sinners do. I'm going to work Dad, and if I can't work Dad, I'm going to work Mom. And then because we want to be, as one of you guys said, friends with our kids, we say, "Where's your mother? I think she's taking a nap." "All right, listen, boy, hurry up. Get my keys. You better be back in an hour." After I know Mom said, "You're not going out." Why do I do that? Why did I do that? Here's why I did that. Because I just sat down with a Wawa hoagie, brother. And I just so happened to time it where the Food Network Cook-Off Challenge is about to start in 5 minutes. And for whatever reason, everybody's doing their homework. There's no fighting. Monique is up napping, and the only fire I got to put out is this teen saying, Dad, can I please go? Can I please go? Go ahead, boy. What was important to me in that moment? Me. And in doing that, totally undermined the boundary, and even, I think, more detrimental, I undermined my marriage. And you keep doing that over and over and over, you will slowly erode the marriage. Okay? It's funny how, as we're trying to build boundaries for our kids, we end up destroying our own marriages. The spousal unity is absolutely important. Okay, are we looking ahead to the trait versus getting through the day? In that moment, I just wanted to get through the day, or in this case, I just wanted to get through the one episode. I worked hard, man. I don't deserve to see one episode. Really. And you know what? I got through the episode, and I had the Wawa hoagie, uninterrupted. And then I remember Mama Bear's getting up. And guess who didn't come back in an hour? God has a sense of humor, doesn't he? A child with boundaries is a parent with boundaries. That is so true. What are the boundaries what part might I be playing and not setting the boundary needed in order for the right behavior to be displayed? In other words, guys, we got to start with us. We got to start with us. Is there a lack of consistency? And I think that's the biggest thing we all struggle with because we're so busy. Is there a lack of consistency? Is there a lack of clear instruction? I'm amazed that sometimes when teens and parents come in for family counsel, there's no clear instruction. I'll look at the teen and say, tell me what your parents expect of you. Write it on the board. No, write it on the board. And I'll look at the mom and dad. Is that what y'all expect? And they're like, no. Son, where'd you get that? Well, you guys always say. You guys always say. Well, no wonder there's conflict. There's not a clear articulation of this is what we expect. And then we mentioned this already. Is there a lack of follow-through? You are wasting your time setting a boundary that you're not going to enforce. I mean, you just wasted all that time. Why do you put a fence up to keep the neighbor's dog out of your garden? And every time you leave the backyard, you leave the fence open. Why did you go through digging all the holes and putting it all up yourself so you can save some money just to open up the gate and leave it open and come in over and over and see the dog in your yard? And then what do we do? What do? We get upset. I can't believe that. I can't. Well, why didn't you close the fence? We do that all the time in our parenting. And again, for so many reasons. Time, we're tired, we're frustrated, and quite honestly, I've talked to so many parents who say, I hear what you're saying, Pastor. I'm just burnt out. I'm done. I said, okay, well, that's not an option because you got a lot of parenting to do, right? We'll talk about that. That's where you got to have support. You got to get other people in your life that are pulling the same way that you're trying to go. You can't do this on your own. So what are some of the obstacles to boundary? Anybody have a comment, question? Is this clicking with you?
I have a question.
Go.
What about when they ask you for grace?
Yes. Should you give it?
I mean, not often. Like, sometimes, I mean, it's like a valid point as a believer sometimes, but.
Yeah, grace is one of those things that I think we need to give our kids, but it can be tricky, right? Because they can exploit your grace. I think you absolutely have to give grace in setting boundaries and when they violate it. Why? Because if you set a boundary and you're not going to be willing to get grace, what you're saying is, I'm going to set this boundary and you're going to be perfect. So you've just set an unrealistic expectation on that kid because there is no kid perfect. Now, the question becomes, how much? So if I tell Ron Jr., listen, man, you're supposed to be in an hour. You came back 2 hours later. Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry. I know, but your mom got on me. See how I'm mad at him because his mother found out that I breached the contract, right? That's not even the way I should be. I shouldn't even be drawing him into that, right? Following weekend, he wants the car again. Oh, Dad, Daryl just called. RJ and I want to run down. Can I go? Nah, son. Not this weekend. And of course, what's going to happen? He's going to go to mom. Right? And now there's going to be a big tough in the house. And now mom's going to do what? Honey, it's okay. He can go see RJ. I'm like, Monique, what are you doing? And what do you think she says? Oh, what am I doing? Oh, I'm like following your leadership. See, the whole thing just falls apart, right? But in that scenario, it's like, no, you're not going, son. You're not going. And what we don't like, and I don't like it, and I'm sure you don't like it, I don't like my kid being mad at me. I don't like the way that feels. I don't like the way it feels when my kid stomps up the steps. I don't like the way it feels when they walk past me and don't say anything because they're mad at me. And that parental love in us oftentimes will run ahead of what is best for the kid. So it's like, no, you're not going. So yes, show grace. When do you show grace? I think you always show grace. But I think you have, and this is where you need God's wisdom. Like, are they exploiting the grace? So yes, it should be shown, but don't let it be exploited.
I mean, we run into that, not a lot, but when we do, I use it as a resource, and it's a teaching moment.
Yep.
And it's an opportunity to focus on why and how that's effective. So it can be a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, right? And there are times with our kids where I wanted to say no, and my wife gives me that look. So then I try to turn it into a teaching moment. It's okay, listen.
Your mother doesn't know what she's talking about.
Right, exactly. Exactly, right? So you're absolutely right. Some of the obstacles, right? Protecting your emotions. Your child's emotions versus reality. In other words, your child may express an emotion, and then you take that as that's the reality, but it's not. So then you respond the wrong way. Your kid feels it's the end of the world. And you don't want your kid to feel it's the end of the world. So you end up giving in. That's what we mean by your child's emotions. No, the reality is it's not the end of the world. The reality of it is, no, your little social group is not going to disown you because you didn't show up because I grounded you. The reality is none of that's going to happen. But we get sucked into the way they're responding. And we're like, well, I don't want that to happen to my kid. I don't want them to be shunned from the group. All right, I'll let you go this time. But the reality is this is about the 10th time you let them go, right? Because we give in. Or your child's emotions versus your past emotions. This happens so much in our parenting. See, whatever type of childhood you had, you start projecting on your own kids. And you remember how you felt when dad didn't or mom didn't. And because you felt in that moment in your childhood what they did was wrong, you give in as the parent to your child. That is dangerous. We do it all the time. My nephew, love him to death, spoiled brat. Love him. Spoiled brat. When I say spoiled brat, he's an only child. It's my younger brother's son, who's now 20. Any gaming system that's out there, he has. Go into his room, shelves of sneakers. I'm talking shelves. I'm talking 1 or 2 pairs, 23, 24 pairs of sneakers. Jackets all lined up. It looks like a little men's warehouse. Okay? Every time I go over there, I say, hey, RJ, what's up? Hey, Unc, how you doing? I said, man, what you got on there? You got new sneaks again. And I always go and I sit down with my brother. When he ain't around, I said, Rich, what are you doing? Here's what Rich always says to me. He's like, bro, you know how we grew up. I said, yeah, man, I do. but this ain't the answer. He said, man, and we grew up hard. We grew up, cue the music, we grew up in the inner city of Philadelphia. We went through winters with no heat. We went through times of no water. It was 8 of us in a row home. There was literally times when we opened up the fridge and there was nothing in it. We grew up poor. Whereas Michael Jr. says, poor, because we couldn't afford the R. It's not my joke, that's his joke. So you grow up that way, that's deep inside of you. And what do? We end up looking at our child's emotions, but it's not our child's emotions, it's you, how you felt. And then we overcompensate. So hard to do, guys. It's hard to do. I've fallen into it. All 8 of my siblings have fallen into that at some level. All 8 of us. This one, brother, extreme. Right? I've fallen into it too. Okay? So you got to guard against feeling your child's emotions and making it personal, because you're not going to parent the right way. And you're not going to set a boundary up that you need to set up. How many times have you said this? Well, growing up, I didn't have. I want the best from my kid. Do you know, unfortunately, what we mean by that most of the time? What are we talking about? We're talking about material things. No, rather than saying I want the best for my kids in a material realm, we ought to want the best character for our kids. And you can build character with an empty refrigerator and no running water. My father did that in all 8 of us. Okay, I'd rather have running water, but that's what the neighbor's hose is for. That's another story. Okay? Depending on the child, it feeds into this. Parental nurturing versus dependence on the child's emotions. I talked to a father a number of years ago. Because of what was happening or what was not happening in his marriage, there was an emotional detachment between he and his spouse. They were separated. So he began to use the 15-year-old son as that emotional support. And he interpreted it as, my son and I are so close, Pastor. We talk about everything. When you get the son alone, my dad needs help. I don't want to be my dad's friend. And he was draining his son at 15 with 44-year-old problems. We got to be careful that we're not depending on our child's emotions. Avoid needing the child's closeness to meet your own unmet emotional needs. And it's so subtle how it happens. It's so subtle. So if Monique and I are arguing, because, yet again, she did something wrong, and so we get the cold shoulder, right? How was work? Fine. You picking up the kid? Fine. Yes. No. Okay? But I'm a very conversational guy. So what do? I target on one of the kids. Hey, Hannah, you want to go to Red Robin? Oh, I'm in. Dad, can I go too? Yeah, come on, let's go. Yeah, let's go. Now, do I really want to take the kids to Red Robin? Because every time I walk out with 5 kids, the bill's $105. Do I really want to do that? Why am I doing that? Emotions. You're not getting something from your wife right now, but it's something you need. So how can I connect emotionally? Who wants to go to Red Robin? And then, of course, how God always spanks me. Everybody's getting ready, going, walking out, and then my little 12-year-old. Dad, should I go get Mom? Mom's tired. Mom doesn't. Aren't we evil? We're so evil. We brought her something back. Avoid needing the child to meet those emotions. Here's a quote. Am I afraid that if I say no to my kids, I will lose the love I need from them? And I think some of us wrestle with that. I don't want to lose their love. And the reality is, you're not going to lose their love. But in the moment, that's what it feels like. Any of your kids ever tell you they hate you? I hate you. Right? I wish I was never born. Those cut deep. Right? Words hurt. The book of James says words are like a fire. Can take out a whole forest. But what we have to do is guard against responding to that. That's not what they mean in the moment. But we take it like, oh my goodness, my kid hates me. And then 2 seconds later, what? All right, you can go. Right? Again, they're not going to reject you. Here's another problem or obstacle. Ignoring and zapping. Or you can call this the buildup. We teach kids to keep pushing until things blow up. They just keep pushing and pushing. We become totally inconsistent with the boundaries that we set. Why? Because they know if I can just keep pushing, eventually you're going to give in or you're going to blow up. So you ignore it. They're violating the boundary and you're not saying anything. I remember doing this one time. Because again, I don't require a lot from my kids when it comes to chores. I mean, just take the trash out. Like, you're in charge of every can in this house, every receptacle that has trash in it. That's all you got to do, right? And when they were younger, they seemed to be so much better at it. Daddy, look, I got the trash. Oh, thank you, baby. Now it's just like, son, you just threw the napkin. Did you notice how you threw it in the trash can and it rolled onto the floor because the trash is 5 inches above the opening? Funny, Dad. And I don't say anything. I just ignore. And I look at the wife like, really? Okay, what's the problem with that? What didn't I do? No consequence. I ignore it, and I remember having one of those days. Come home, and I had one of those days. And I work at a Christian school, and there's no issues. And I'm just like, I am just like done. And I go to throw something in the trash, and again, it's 5 inches above, and when I go to throw my paper plate away, the whole thing, and I'm like, oh, God. So now I'm trying to pick it up, and when I pull it out, Ronald, get down here. How many times I got to tell you to get the trash out? Get it up. Here, get the cup. Boom. Now you zap. What do you think his response was?
Chill out, Dad.
Chill out, Dad. What do you think my response was? Oh, you know what, son? You're right. You know what? Let me step back. I'm just gonna move on. Guys, you can't ignore the lack of follow through because you're gonna blow up. And once you blow up at your kid, I don't know any parents that can blow up at their child and simultaneously parent correctly. You destroy a little piece of them emotionally. Well, I wouldn't have to do that if they... No. Later for that. You're going to destroy them emotionally. Right? Rather than ignoring it, the follow-through, the consequence is absolutely detrimental. Here's the thing, in my mind, why do I have to come home every single night and tell a 21-year-old to empty the trash? I'm not doing that anymore. You're supposed to be a man. Okay, don't do that. What's going to happen? You're going to ignore it. You're going to blow up at him. Rather than saying, son, listen, I need you to take trash out. That's all I need you to do. Get it out to the curb before, that's all I need you to do. Next time you don't do that, I'm taking the car away. You said, wait a minute. Trash, no car privileges. Is that unfair? Is that a bit extreme? No, that ain't extreme. It's not about car versus trash. It's about follow through and responsibility. That's the weight. And I'm going to take away, remember, I'm a resource. I'm going to take away whatever resource I need to take away from you, that you might learn this characteristic of being a responsible young man. But in our mind, it's like, why do I have to do that? It's trash. Just take it out. You know why? Because they're kids. Because their brain, especially boys, are still developing. Their executive function is not all developed till they're about 25. And I know in our mind it makes total sense. In their mind, it's like, oh, you want me to take all the trash out? And then you're like, right? So, you know, how many of you guys were in last year's Your Teens Are Not Crazy Symposium? Any of you guys come to that, right? There really are biological studies. Like that part of their brain is not developed, right? So again, don't ignore. And again, being worn down. I just can't do this. I'm tired, okay? We can't keep boundaries if we are worn out. Have you taught your child to keep pushing until you give in? Have you created that in your child? Think about it. If a kid knows they can keep pushing because you're going to give in, you created that. My kid is just so defiant. Yeah, well, good job. You created that defiant kid, right? I mean, think about it. My father was old school. Anybody have an old school father? Y'all know what I mean by that, okay? My father didn't have conversations with us about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. If my father walked in the house and the chore wasn't done, he would say, go get Ronald. And when my brother came upstairs and said, Dad wants you, I was like, oh no, did I take the trash out? Nah, I told you Dad was coming home. Oh no. At that point, I'm trying to say, what kind of attorney is going to help a 15-year-old? Because I know how this conversation is going to go. It's not going to be a conversation. It's going to be a severe consequence. Right? Guess what happens the next day? Trash is taken out. Like he taught us, like, I'm not going to negotiate with you. I'm not going to hear the reasons why. My dad was just like, letter of the law. He was a military man. I don't want to hear it. Right? So many times we end up allowing our kid to keep pushing the boundaries, pushing them, and they wear us down, and that becomes the model of parenting that they're used to. You created that. The law of sowing and reaping. Allow reality, consequences to take place. Transfer the responsibility to the child. One of the things that I'm concerned about as I look at our next generation, and this doesn't necessarily apply to, I don't even know all your kids, but as a whole, we are raising a generation of young people who cannot handle anything. Guys, and I'm like, where are we going to be 10 years from now? Where are the next leaders? All right? Now, this next comment might sting. Why are we raising a generation of kids that can't handle anything? Well, it might sound like this. This is just hypothetical. Pastor Ron? Yeah, how you doing? Yeah, so Johnny was talking about, like, he got a B- on his final, and he really worked hard all night on that. And I'm just wondering, like, what is your, and I'm like, he got a B, okay, and so what's the issue? Well, could we come in and talk about this? Because Johnny got a B- on his final? Johnny got a B- on his final because Johnny did B- work. Well, could I see the rubric that you're using? Perhaps in that category we could have, what? That doesn't happen here. This is a Christian school. Guys, if we are going to protect our kids from any negative consequence, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. And again, psychologists will tell you, everybody goes back to COVID. And everybody says because of COVID. I can tell you this is before COVID. I've been in the field for 25 years. I've been counseling people for 25 years. This is before COVID. This idea that we need to protect our children from any level of stress, from any level of responsibility, of follow through. So here's what happens. In the real world, that doesn't work. And guess what it produces in our kids? Irresponsibility, and on the mental health note, anxiety, depression. We are creating that. And I look at it in these microcosm ways of where these kids cannot handle any stress. Now, I know there are real mental health issues going on. I have mental health issues in our family. So I'm not diminishing that. But what I'm saying is, are we contributing to that? And I would say, absolutely. When we are guarding the consequences, not allowing our kids feel the disappointment, feel that you didn't make the team. That's life. Yeah, I need to see how you guys do tryouts over there, because I know my kid can throw a 93, and I'm not sure why. Really? Are we doing this? We're setting our kids up, and there's no responsibility to just deal with life, deal with disappointments, navigate through it to become a better person, right? That's a whole topic in and of itself. I do want to do a symposium on the mental health of our kids, though, because it is a huge topic. So key questions. Here's something you got to ask yourself. Whose problem is this when it comes to setting boundaries with our kids? Like, whose problem is this? Is it yours or is it theirs? What can I do to help him experience the problem? I need to set boundaries in such a way where he feels the weight. He needs to feel the weight. If you breach this boundary, you're going to feel it. I got to let him feel that, guys. My son, senior year at this school, 2019. Son, get off the gaming device. Son, get off. Anybody have that problem at their house? Get off the gaming device. Put it down, right? And then finally, I said to myself, Self, why you keep telling me to get off the gaming device? Take the gaming device. What are we doing? So I go home one day and I say, hey, give me the Xbox. Unplug that. Give me that. Dad, what are you doing? Give me. That goes away. Really, Dad? Yeah, really. Now watch this. So now he doesn't want to do any work. Protests. Your kid ever protest? Right? I said, you can protest. You don't work for a union. Go ahead and protest all you want. So now he doesn't want to do work. Come home, Monique tells me, he's not doing any work. Look at his grades. I pull up his grades. This is his senior year. C, 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 D, D. I said, okay. She said, should we go talk to his teachers? No. She's like, okay, Ron, this is his senior year. I said, yep. And if he has to go get a GED, let him get a GED. That was the best parenting move we made. Best parenting move we made. We're sitting at the table. Now it's April. He's graduating. We're sitting there talking, laughing. When my daughter brings up the summer, Dad, this summer, can we go up to that cabin up? I said, I would love to, but we got to see what the summer school schedule is going to look like for Ron Jr. He was like, huh? I'll never forget. I just kept eating. I said, yeah, we got to see what the schedule is like. He was like, wait, what do you mean summer school? I said, well, son, I was looking at your grades on RunWeb. You're failing all but one class right now. It's April. And I just went on talking. Pass the biscuits. Y'all going to eat that chicken? Thank you. And I'm watching him at the corner of my eyes, his whole countenance. From that day, he starts soaring. Do you know how hard it was for me to back up like this? Especially, and look, we all do this. I'm passionate about education. I'm an educator. To see one of my kids flounder at that, who has the ability, do you know what I wanted to do? Run interference. But when is he going to learn? I backed up, and I had to hold Mama Bear back. I said, you got to trust me on this. Graduation. He's sitting up on the stage at the old building at graduation. We're going through the program. Oh, yeah, Ron, he's didn't call him up. Mr. Clymer goes up there. And now, for the seniors, for honor roll, Ronald L. Jones. I was like, and the funny thing about it, and it's on the video, my son's up there talking to his buddies, laughing. Mr. Clymer calls his name. He just keeps talking. And they're like hitting him. They're like pointing. He was like, me? He walks up. He graduated with honors. Had the ability. But I had to step back and let him fall on his face. I had to let him feel an F. I had to let him feel the reality of, you're going to summer school. And to add insult to injury, Dad's not paying for it. You are. And that's where Mama Bear wanted to run in. Oh, now, honey. Guys, whose problem is it? If it's a problem within their world, within their realm, stop rescuing. We think we're going to damage our kids if we let them feel some type of negative consequence. Well, but if I do that, she'll get kicked off a chair. Let her get kicked off of chair. But then her opportunities we want them to have the best opportunities. No, we're creating kids that have no character, but opportunities. So how long do you think those opportunities are going to last? Or how far is it going to take them if they have no character? It's hard. It's hard. What am I doing to keep him from experiencing the problem? There are going to be times where you need to step back. Now, again, you got to make this age appropriate, okay? If your 4-year-old's running over to the waterfall, no, she'll see. Let her go. She'll see. When she goes down, she'll see. I know, I'll swim and get her, but let her feel that. No. It has to be age appropriate. But we do have to let them feel the consequence. Okay, I wanted to read this quote on page 63. All right? Are you guys new to FCA? Oh, all right, you get the book. You get the last book. Remind me to give it to you, okay? But I need it for a minute. Let me read this quote to you real quick. Is this making sense, guys? Any questions coming in your head? Are you seeing yourself in, are you starting to see? All right, here we go. Listen at this. That's sad not getting to play today. I know. I feel for you missing the game. I hate it when I don't get to do something I want. That's the parent. I bet you are hungry. I hate to miss a meal too. Okay. Now compare that to this. Don't come crying to me. If you had just done your work, you wouldn't be in this mess. Don't give me it's not fair. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. Well, if you would have done your chores and behaved, you would have gotten to eat with us. But maybe next time you won't be so selfish and place all of us in jeopardy of eating late. Which one is you? Notice the top parenting. Instead of don't cry and saying and shaming the kid, yeah, that's sad not getting to play today. Move on. You can show empathy with your kid. Nothing wrong with that. But don't do what? Don't shame them. Don't shame them. Right? If you would have done your chores and behaved, you would have gotten to eat with it. No. Hey, I bet you're hungry. Yeah, I hate to miss a meal too. And go sit down and eat your meal while they're still on timeout. That's hard. That's hard to do, but I'm telling you, these kind of practical things are formulating in your kid, this is what reality feels like. If we don't let our kids feel what reality feels like, you're setting them up for failure. They're not going to make it out in this world. Because here's one thing I'm realizing as a parent, and here's the sad thing. When you start to get it, you look in the mirror and you got no hair, and like they're 23. I'm like, wow, So then what do? You try to tell younger parents, hey, let me tell you what not to do. Caleb, listen to me. Let me tell you what not to do, right? But here's what I'm realizing. If I don't set boundaries, I'm teaching my kid that the world in their mind truly exists, but it doesn't. And this is why I think so many of our young adults, so many of our 20, 21, 24, 20, they're not making it. Up at King's College, I got to watch your time, we got to move. Up at King's College, the president was talking, and he said, someone asked, why did we move the King's College from the Empire State Building to the Manhattan Financial District? It's a great speech. The guy looked like Harry Potter, right? This new president they had. And he said, we wanted to be in the center of Babylon. Whoa. And he said, not only that, but the King's College, and this is not a plug for King's College, I don't work for the college, but this is what he said. The King's College in New York is known at producing some of the most responsible young 20-year-olds. Men and women of integrity. That all of the major clearinghouses in New York, the publishing companies, the producers, the market analysis place, the CPA, they call the King's College for their graduates. So he said, this is the president speaking, I was at a fundraiser for the college and I met an executive at NBC. And I introduced myself. He said, oh, you're the president of the King's College. He said, we hired a couple of your interns. And here's what the King's College president said. He said to this executive, may I ask you a question? What is it about our kids that attracts you? He said, let me tell you what it is. When they come to work, they do what we ask. They don't tell us what they're not trained to do. And they don't tell us in the interview the days they need off. Now, again, please don't take offense. I'm just relaying a message. We get that from the guys from Cornell and NYU. Wow. We've let guys go making $90,000 at 22 because we come in with a project that's going to take a little bit more time, and they're like, I was gonna leave. So that's why we hire King's College people. I said, wow. My daughter and I were up there visiting, but when I found out they were $50,000 a year, I said, well, y'all keep doing what y'all doing. Come on. Temple U, here we come, Temple University. But wow, right? We need to create kids that are responsible. Immature people experience life as victims and constantly want someone else to solve their problems. Do you know you can inadvertently make your child that way? If you keep running interference, and if you don't set a boundary and keep that boundary there, what begins as the parent's burden must end up as the child's. There has to be this transferring of responsibility. That's not going to happen if you don't set boundaries. Now, I've ragged on my son, made him look bad, so let me tell you something good. So, about a year ago, we all suffered going through COVID and stuff, and it went through our family, okay? Knocked me on my back. I swear I saw Moses. I'm like, wow. I mean, it was bad. I come down to the kitchen one day, because I do the cooking in our house. I do the shopping. I enjoy doing it. This is the second day I'm out. And I'm like, let me just try to sneak down where Monique doesn't see me. And I'm going to try to order online, giant, right? Okay, because we got to fix stuff because we're men. I get down to the kitchen, almost killed me. I open up the fridge, filled. I go to the pantry, filled, soup, bread, all kinds. And I look outside, and groceries are still coming in. Who was bringing the groceries in? Ron Jr. And I said, son, what you doing? He said, oh, Dad, what are you doing down here? Get upstairs. I said, where's Mom? Mom's still at work. I said, you bought all this? He said, yeah, we need food, don't we? Man, that just made, I was like, This is the kid I couldn't get to take the trash out. Took it upon himself to take the car and use his money and buy groceries for a family of 7. Never once gave me a receipt or anything. And I'm like, thank you, son. And he kind of looked at me like, well, yeah, we need to eat. I'm like, thank you, Lord. Did you get Oreos? So guys, listen, trying to teach them responsibility, right? If you stay at this, you will see it happen, even with all your failures. To develop appropriate boundaries, children need to have power or ability to control something. Okay? You want to give them some area of their life where they have total sovereignty over it. And let them make the decision. Okay? Within a healthy boundary, let them fail or let them succeed. I want them to do that under my roof before they have to do that out in the real world. And sometimes parents are so controlling everything. No, stop. You got it age appropriate, step back. What are you power struggling over? Just let it go. Now, again, all of us are different. You may not agree with what I'm about to say, and that's fine. You got to do what works in your home, but I'm trying to teach you a principle. I know parents that power struggle, and maybe that's you, so I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. But how many of you power struggle over your kids keeping their rooms clean? You don't have to answer. Okay. I don't. That's a battle I'm willing to go, and you get everything that comes with it. I'm not going to, why am I going to keep going? I literally cannot see the wooden floor in my daughter's room right now. You open it up, once you get it open, and it's closed, all over the place. Right? Inside of me, I want to scream. I want to yell yet again for the umpteenth. And I said, you know, why? Why are you power struggling over this? Do I have to sit in her mess? Nope. Yeah, but she needs it there. Okay, but it's her room. If you want to live like that, go ahead. Right? Now I'm just using that as an example. Now here's the thing. She gets everything that comes with it. So a couple mornings ago, running late. I said, is your sister up? Dad, I don't hear her moving. So I love this. I love this. When you shoot the text upstairs, leaving. I said, listen. And all of a sudden you heard. And then you heard, boom. And they were like, what was that? I said, she probably tripped on something on her floor. I felt so good. She came downstairs and she's like, I said, babe, what's wrong? You okay? She said, I hit my head on there. Oh, she dead. I said, how'd you do that? The dresser's all the way over here. Your bed's here. How'd you do that? Oh, did you trip on something? Look, I'm not going to fight. If you want to live that way, you live that way, right? Let her get to the place where she doesn't like those consequences. Empower her to make the change. Why am I going to fight you over that? Okay? I just use that as an example, but there's so many different areas that you could use, and maybe you need to relinquish that. Give it up to them. Let them have it. Why does it have to be your way? Why does her room have to be the way you kept your room? It's not your room, right? Well, when I did my homework, I did it like this, and then I did this. So what? Right? So often what we do, we're trying to set boundaries with our kids without giving them any power. And then you got all these unnecessary fights, guys. Again, I'm an educator. I believe when it's time to do homework, everything is off. You put your books up, unclutter. That's what I saw my dad do. That's what I do. My kids aren't like that. My kids are not like that. My one kid loves to do her homework on the dining room floor. Her laying on the floor, feet up on the chair, like this, on her back, her phone right here playing Spotify. You think I'm fighting that battle? She's getting her homework done. I'm learning. I would take 20 minutes. What are you doing? Would you please get your feet out of the chair? What is wrong with you? Put your books, 20 minutes. Dad, why do you have to, Dad, I need my paper. Now I lost my, why am I doing that? Because that's not the way I study. Well, who died and made you the queen of how to do homework? Guys, what area do you need to relinquish? Right? You all right, bro? Do share. All right. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? I'm not talking about a free-for-all. But there are some areas you have to give them power. Let them fail within that little world. Okay. The issues used to create good boundaries. Their space, their time, their clothing, that's a big one, their appearance. I have 3 daughters. 3 daughters, 2 boys, and I constantly remind my daughters, you have 4 uncles who are police officers. Be careful who you invite over this house and what you have on when they come over. Right? Oh, Dad, right? Okay, that's a big one. She'll come running downstairs. Dad, I'm going. Whoa. Back up. Mom said I look cute. Here we go. Monique, did you see this? Oh, honey, she's fine. Come here, Haven. Let me fix it. Okay, go. Have a good time. Really? She said, oh, come on. I wore that kind of stuff too, and you liked it. All of a sudden, spouses are not on the same page, right? Their choice of friends, how they use their money, right? There's all kinds of issues, guys, that you got to set boundaries in, but you have to give them power. Don't try to control all these areas of their lives, because you're going to miss out on forming responsibility in them, and you're going to miss out on building a closeness with them. This is difficult. We're going to default to making our kids like us. Good, bad, or ugly, that's what we're going to default to do. And we got to be able to look at their uniqueness, their personality, and say, you know what, they're not me. Let them do them. Right? Very hard. Does that make sense? Okay? All right. Limit omnipotence, but encourage autonomy. Limit all power. Limit that. But encourage autonomy. I'm not going to power it over you. I'm going to give you freedom. Okay? It takes a lot of wisdom to do this. The law of respect. Disrespect is normal, but should not continue. We're sinners. You never disrespect your parents. But it ought not to be the norm. It ought not to continue. So don't, oh, my kid is so disrespectful. What am I going to do? I'm going to send him to a boarding school. Wait, hold on. Right? Empathy plus correction plus consequences. So you can have the empathy, but then you got to have the correction and then the follow through. Okay? These are just principles that we need to have in place. The law of respect teaches children that the world does not belong only to them, and they have to share it with others. This is not just about you. My 5 kids, I love them. But they can all have their moments of pure selfishness. Pure selfishness. Like the one cookie that's left, and your sister's going for it, and because you're bigger, you outpower her and you take it and eat it. I just look at them. And you're laughing because you ate the cookie. She's crying. I'm like, you're so selfish, man. Why'd you do that? Right? And you say, well, it's a cookie. But there's a character thing in there. All right? You can take those moments to teach. Okay? Plus, I wanted that one. You leave that out. You know, Hebrews 12:11. Just watching our time here. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, right? but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Started with that verse. You have to be willing to stay consistent for the long haul in order to see the fruit of righteousness. Don't get worn down and say these boundaries don't work. No, boundaries do work. Boundaries work. What we do, we remove them or we ignore them because the kid won't follow through. But then when the kid doesn't follow through, you don't give consequences because of all of your emotional baggage, right? So it's like we're doing this to ourselves. My dad raised 8 kids in the inner city back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it was his way or the highway. And I remember as adults, we were all at his 78th birthday party. This was like almost 10 years ago now. He's gone. And we said, Dad, you were rough. You were rough on us. You know, all 6 boys sitting around, my one sister, my other sister since passed away. And my dad was sitting there and he was eating some wings or something, his little bony fingers, and he was frail now. And, you know, he's looking at us and we're like, yeah, Dad, I remember the time, Dad, I remember the time. And then we're doing it in jest. We're doing it in jest, right? Like just, yeah. And then he wiped his mouth. He said, you know what I want to say to all of y'all? And we were like, I mean, it was funny because that voice, when he got into that disciplined voice, I mean, as a grown man, I was like, and all 6 big boys sitting around the table, they were just like, and he was like, I'd do it again. And don't you think I can't whip y'all? I got scared. I was like, Dad, you want some more ice cream? I'm going to go get some. But was he perfect? No. Did he go overboard? Yeah. In many instances, child services would have had him probably locked up. Did we turn out men of character and integrity? Yes. And I thank God for what he did. Because he didn't damage us. He's just not allowed to do that now, right? So guys, what I'm saying is don't give up, okay? What is your kid conforming to? Or why is your kid conforming to a particular motivation, right? The law of motivation says what? I don't want my kid conforming to some boundary because I said so. That's not character building. That's not character building. What will that motive produce long term? I want my kid to do right because he wants to serve others. I want him to leave the cookie, not because Dad's going to yell at me if I eat the last cookie, but I'm going to prefer my little sister over me. That's what I want to produce in my kid, character. So a lot of times, if you're not clear in your mind, what is the character trait you're trying to produce, you're going to end up doing pragmatic parenting. Pragmatic parenting does not work to produce character. Doesn't work. It's not the way God designed it. We want their hearts to change. But again, we go to pragmatism because we're tired, we're hungry, and we're tired of having this battle. Guys, don't give in because you're not going to produce character, okay? Stages of motivation. Okay, I'm going to skip over some of this because I want to stop right at 7:30. Respect your time. Again, like I said, let me go here. Setting up the boundaries. And again, if you want this PowerPoint, just let me know. Email me and I'll send it to you. The 3 realities. Your child is not perfect. The issue is not the issue. And time does not heal all. What do I mean by that? Some parents have this false assumption. They can just not have boundaries, have all these arguments back and forth, but once they get older, it'll all work out. No, it won't. I counsel those 20 and 30-year-old kids where this was not done, and they're still irresponsible, selfish, narcissistic, and they throw tantrums at 35. Don't think that chronological age magically produces character. It does not. Do you know what chronological age does if you don't do this? It solidifies a lack of character. Look at our prisons. Average age 24 years old. So guys, please don't get frustrated and say, you know what, once I get older, you'll know, you'll see. When you get older, no. Teach them. Set these boundaries in their lives. Plug in. Growth doesn't occur in a vacuum. Relationships outside of yourself. This is hard to do. You can't do this alone. You got to get people who think the same way. Encourage one another. Monique and I will talk to other people, and again, it's hard. If you got one kid, praise God. If you got two, praise God. I want to talk to somebody who got 5. It's a different dynamic. Find those people in your church setting, in your work setting, and just look, hey, once a month, man, let's just get together and just talk about our parenting. Hold each other accountable. Get other help. Burnout will undermine everything. You know how refreshing it is to sit with another couple that has 5 kids and hear their horror stories? Very similar. And I'm like, man, it's not just me. Wow, it's an encouragement, right? So again, don't try to fly solo doing this. Grow in boundaries personally. Set the example. We could do a whole seminar on this. Guys, as goes your marriage, so goes the boundaries. Your kids are looking at you. I love this verse. Blessed are those who keep his statutes and seek him with all of their heart. If the very boundaries you're trying to set in your kids' lives are not in your life, they see right through that. Don't you talk to me that way. Well, why do you talk to mom like that? Ooh. This is between us. Forget it. You lost all credibility. I'm realizing after 28 years of marriage, the best thing, one of the things I think Monique and I did right, is we protected our marriage. I'm not saying we had a perfect marriage. We don't. We never will. But we handle conflict the right way. That's the one thing I can say Monique and I, well, hopefully there's more, but the one thing that sticks out, if we disagreed or had conflict, we handled it the right way. We handled it the right way. And our kids saw that. And for what it's worth, as we're now trying to set boundaries in their lives, it brings credibility. There's this security because mom and dad are good. Okay, I can trust what they're saying for me. It's for my good. Guys, how your marriage goes, it will affect how these boundaries go in your kids' lives. Okay? Evaluate and plan. Again, you got to look at the age of the child, the maturity, the context, the specific boundary conflict. What is it that you're trying to change? Okay? Take time and don't just parent on a whim. Like sit with your spouse and say, let's really think this through what's going on with our kids. Why are they responding this way? What about their temperament? Are we considering all those things? Take time. You know, sometimes I look at parents who are professionals in their field, and they do this with their careers to become better at whatever they do, but we don't do it with our parenting. Okay? For you, what are your own issues? What's your life context? Where are you in life? Are you going through a midlife crisis? You trying to set a boundary that's really about your midlife crisis and not the best thing for your kid? I mean, you got to ask the hard questions. Okay? A boundary-resistant spouse. That's probably the worst thing in the world if you guys are not on the same page. You are undermining your kid's stability when you guys are not on the same page. What's the specific problem? What are the specific expectations? What are the specific consequences? Take time and come up with this plan. You can't just say, I don't know how many times Monique and I, when our kids were younger, we were just frustrated. Okay, we need to do something about this. They never cleaning up. We need to do something about this. Right on a whim, we're going to parent. All right, nobody gets dessert until it's all cleaned up. Wow, that was brilliant. And how long did that last? One day. You didn't think it through. You didn't think through the consequences, right? The road to boundaryless hell It's paved with good intentions. Follow through. You got to follow through. All right, I'm going to stop here because we got about 2 or 3 minutes. And again, I knew I wasn't going to get through all of this. Let me end with this. Is it too late? Because you might be listening to all this and say, man, I'm done. My kids are done. No, it's not too late. The longer a child lives with the delusion that he is God, the more resistance he will have to giving up living in this happy place in his head. Does that make sense? The Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. If the kid is still under your roof, there's still hope. If they're still under you, I don't care what you failed at, if they're still under your roof, it is not too late. You can begin to set boundaries that should have been set 5 years ago. Set them now. Set them now, okay? And I'll end with this. For by you, I can run against a troop, and by my God, I can leap over a wall. I love that. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. It's only by God's grace. And where Monique and I have failed, we're constantly before God. Lord, we should have done it this way with this one. We should have done it this way with it. But give us your grace. Give us your wisdom to restore what we can restore and to renew what we need to renew. And it's exhausting, and it takes time, and it's frustrating. But I believe this verse with all of my heart. And we're at the point in our parenting with a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old, we're starting to see some of the fruit. But if you look at what it was like coming up, you'd be like, what is going on in that house? Stay consistent. Stay consistent. By God's grace, we can do this. Amen? I'm going to let it rest there. Any last comments or thoughts? I know we rushed through the end there, but again, it's a big topic. Comments or thoughts? Make sense? Okay, honestly, and please don't raise your hand. Don't try to make me feel good, because I'm not an insecure guy. I don't need affirmation. Was there something, honestly, where you're like, you know what, that's one thing I could do different? Let me see your hands. Good, then it was worth it. It was well worth it. All right, well, I'm going to pray. And again, if you guys want to grab a snack over there, some water. Thank you so much for coming out. When we get this audio linked together or whatever, we'll make it available to you. But if you do want the PowerPoint, feel free to email me, and I can send that right over to you. And again, I want to encourage you to get the book. The book has a lot more in it. But let's do this. These kids are God's gifts to us. And God knows our frustrations, right? He does. So let's pray. Father, thank you for all these parents. And God, I do pray for them. I pray, God, that you might grant them wisdom. It was a lot we talked about today, but help them to begin to sort out what they need to do different and setting up healthy boundaries, empowering our kids to be responsible. Lord, our kids are gifts from you, and we thank you for them. And I pray, Father, for your wisdom for each of us as we endeavor to train them up in the way that they need to go. So, Father, thank you again for our time tonight. We pray for your blessing as we go. In Christ's name, amen. All right, guys, thank you. Have a great evening.